Well, we're just about to enjoy the last of our fall raspberry crop. This variety that we're looking at is Southland, and it's a fall-bearing red raspberry. You can get a little bit of a crop off in the early summer, and then new canes come up during the summer and bear again in the fall. And there are many varieties that do well here that are fall-bearing that you can choose from. One thing you do need to do with raspberries or with blackberries is to make sure that you prune them properly. And these are being trimmed right now by Brenda, and what she's doing is cutting back the old flora canes. Now on raspberries and on blackberries you have what you call primo canes, and those are the new canes that come up that haven't fruited yet, and then you have flora canes, and they're the ones that bear a flower crop, and as soon as they're through bearing a crop they start to die back. So we want to cut that back and discard it, and if you look down in there you can see that we have some new primo canes coming up this fall, and those will probably be frozen back. And with the fall bearing, as I mentioned, they have two sets of flora canes and primo canes that come up through the season. Now let's look over here at our regular thorny blackberries, and they have a more typical growth habit of having a one-year cycle of sending up a new primo cane. It goes through a summer, it goes through a winter, it bears a fruit crop, and then it dies. And the ideal time to take these out would have been this summer, right after we were through harvesting them. But I'm going to get down here and cut these out now. And keep in mind, you want to have on long sleeves and gloves because the thorny ones will really get you. But you want to pull that out, and you probably have to cut it out to extricate it from the existing primo canes. And again, the easiest time to do this is right after harvest, when you can see what you're doing and see the difference between the two. If you wait until winter time, some people have difficulty distinguishing these old dead canes from the canes that they need to leave in place for next year. But you just want to cut that out, and this is one good reason to really try to stay on top of your blackberry patch and not let it get too large and out of control. We're going to prune those up and run them through our chipper shredder, and hopefully they'll compost well. Let me show you some that are thornless, and that's more of a favorite for me, especially if you have to fight all those thorns. Now with thornless blackberries, the nice thing about them is it's pain-free to work with them, but one problem is that they have very long gangly growth. In fact, one primo cane, which is what this is, it hasn't borne fruit yet, it has to go through the winter first. One primo cane can grow up to 25 feet long in a year. And so you could, during the growing season, cut these back, and because this one grew up and bent over, certain hormones collected in the plant tissue right here and induced side shoots to come out. And every one of those has a bud on it that's going to bear flowers next year and bear a crop. And that tells me that this is a crop that you easily could prune back to here in the summertime, force out a hedgy type habit, and keep it a tidier plant. Now we're not going to prune this right now at all because thornless blackberries are marginally winter hardy in certain winters in Oklahoma. If we have a Dallas winter in central Oklahoma, it's not too bad. But if we have a Chicago winter where the cold air comes in, we could freeze this all the way to the ground. And if you prune it now, it'll be even more cold susceptible. So I'm going to leave it in place. However, we still have the old flora canes that can come out. And you can go in and be taking those out right now and sort of give you a little better idea of what you have there. Because keep in mind, they're really not going to do anything for the plant, and they'll just confuse the issue. Now if you have a patch of brambles that just seem to have gotten totally out of control, and we have a good example here. Right over here are some thorny blackberries that have not been pruned back in some time. If it looks like you just can't make heads or tails of it, you may want to go in and just hedge it back. Now you want to wait until after the leaves drop. Wait until we've had a killing freeze, the leaves have dropped and these are dormant, and what you can do is go in and go down to ground level or about 6 inches above ground level and cut the entire patch out. What will happen though is that you're going to lose next year's crop, but you can spend next year pruning it, training it, and getting the rows narrowed and the plants hedged back more shortly, and then in 97 you'll have a crop. Now it's interesting, this is some work that's been done by the folks at the Kerr Center for Sustainable Agriculture on a blackberry farm that they were working on down near Poto. They had rows and rows of thorny blackberries, and what they did was they bush hogged one row every other year, and that way they didn't have hand pruning labor to do. They got a crop every other year, but they could manage that farm with fewer people. And if you have a big piece of property you're trying to maintain, you might try that method with blackberries and see if it works out for you. Well, I'm going to get back and give Brenda a hand with those red raspberries, and then we're going to have a snack.